There's Catherine.
Okay, Catherine's connecting, and so is Michelle.
Excellent.
Hi there. Hello.
Hello.
How are you guys?
Good. How are y'all?
Good. I'm Debbie Deleon. I'm the host for these events. This is Eric Baliko. He is an independent insurance broker. I am a realtor in Charleston, South Carolina, and I have a 14-year-old son with autism. And I started this whole event series because I wanted to help other families like mine. And that was kind of the goal. So, I've had different speakers throughout the year, different attorneys and different therapists and special education teachers, anybody that I could pull from my network to give some guidance, information, whatever I could to other special needs families like mine. So tonight, Eric is going to give you guys some info on health insurance. And, he's been doing this for 16 years. So very, very knowledgeable, and I'll kind of let him take it away.
Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate it. Hi, Catherine. We talked on the phone the other day. It's nice to meet you and put a face with the name.
Yes.
And nice to meet you, Michelle, as well. So is everybody here in Charleston or in Charleston area, or are you spread out a little bit, or?
Yeah. Hi. Nice to meet you too. Mount Pleasant.
Thank you.
And
Okay, great.
Chris and I are in Ridgeville.
Ridgeville. Okay, great. Yep, that's awesome. Yeah, I remember we talked, but as we talked on the phone the other day, my plate is full right now and overflowing. And this is actually my second presentation day. So, this is, health insurance and managing this stuff. And it's like, it's nothing. It's not something that anybody likes to do. So I get it. Where, my motivation and inspiration comes from is helping people, finding solutions for people, and, just helping save money, get more services that are available to them. And so over the past 16 years, my number one goal is to really just become an encyclopedia of my industry. So I can just, not only be an agent where I can earn a living, but to be a resource for members in the community. So this is a very complex industry. It's always changing as well. So there's tons of resources out there that, we can access. And so that's what I spend a good amount of time doing. So you can never learn everything in this industry, that's for sure. So I'm honored to be here. I'm honored that Debbie has asked me to speak with y'all today and to give you a little bit of insight on, what to expect, what to look for, what kind of needs that you may have, and how I can help guide you through your journey, whatever that may be. So, it just, like I said, like Debbie said, I've been doing this for 16 years. And I think I'm losing my connection. Am I okay? You guys okay? Am I good? Okay.
Yeah, you're good. We can still hear you. You're good.
Thank you. I got a notification that my connection was unstable. So thanks. Spent 15 years in the hotel business and the corporate world. And after that kind of ran its course and decided I wanted to do something more, spend more time with my family, have more freedom with my schedule, and go work for myself. And I found that here. I never thought in a million years I'd be an insurance agent. Most insurance agents I know would say the same thing. They didn't go to school for this, that somehow they fell into it. So, um, you know, my goal and my objective is to really be, again, it's a guide and an encyclopedia for our industry. I have 2 children. I have a 25-year-old son. He has some mild special needs, but never really had a diagnosis to get the services that are available to other kids. So, you know, that's part of my passion, is going from there. I have another child that is adopted. So I have a 25-year-old and a 7-year-old. So pretty good split, right? Thought I was going to be an empty nester, and my niece ended up in emergency foster care, and my wife said, we're going to get her. So yesterday was our 4th anniversary of our adoption of her. And so she gets her medical coverage because she was in the foster system. She gets her medical coverage through Medicaid, so, or Healthy Connections, as we call it in South Carolina. So I've had a little bit of experience with that personally, and so I know it can be somewhat difficult to navigate. But you know, there's a lot that goes into this. There's federal governance, there's state governance, and the biggest challenge is, you know, if you're moving from one state to another, every state has different mandates. They still have to fall under the federal guidelines, but some states require insurance companies or Medicaid or whatever the state plan may be to require a lot more coverage that's beyond the scope of what the federal guidelines are. For example, employer-sponsored coverage, state to state, and the coverage is based on, or the policy is in the plan, and the coverage is based on the state that the policy is written in. So basically, wherever the employer's home office would be, or where the corporate headquarters is, regardless of where the employee resides. So for instance, if you live in South Carolina and you work for a company in, let's say, Seattle or Chicago or something like that, the plan is going to fall, the benefits are going to fall under the guidelines of whatever state that is. So if you're in South Carolina, you may have the same benefits that somebody living in Seattle has, because that policy was written in Washington state. Okay. Same thing if it was written in Illinois or New Jersey or New York or Maryland, and vice versa. So often those benefits can be a lot more robust in other states than they are in South Carolina. So it vice versa, you flip the switch, people in other states that work for a company here where the benefits aren't quite as robust, they are, you know, they may be getting less coverage sometimes than they would typically if their employer was based in the state that they're in. So, you know, there's a lot that goes into this. Again, you know, a lot of times I hear that certain carriers, you know, they're not very good, or a certain carrier is great. You know, a lot of it goes into the design of the plan, is going to be based on the mandates in that particular state. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of different ways that policies are written depending on the type of company that it is. Self-insured companies, A lot of times they have more flexibility to include additional benefits based on the need of the organization. Unions and railroad and state and federal government employer benefit can often provide much more robust benefits than a private business insurance plan. Does anybody have any questions so far? Does this make sense, or is it? Plans like TRICARE, if you're in the military and you have TRICARE, I'm saying all this because it's leading up to getting help with family members with special needs and how it's going to play out. TRICARE plans for retired military beneficiaries. They can also provide much more robust plans, and some of their regulations aren't subject to the federal guidelines. So for children with special needs, in 1982, the TEFRA Act allowed states to make Medicaid benefits available to certain disabled children who wouldn't ordinarily be eligible for SSI benefits because their parents' income may be too high. So that allowed children with certain disabilities to be able to access coverage through the state, Medicaid, and here in South Carolina, help what they call Healthy Connections. When a child becomes eligible for TEFRA Medicaid, most of the time, employer-sponsored health plans are a great addition to having Healthy Connections and Medicaid. Their plans can be very robust, and the private plans will be the primary, and Healthy Connections or TEFRA or Medicaid will be your secondary coverage. So very often the private plan will pay most of the claim for a specific services. And if there's anything left over, very often Medicaid will come in and pick up the difference. And there are some exceptions to that in the event that it is above the Medicaid allowable expense. Sometimes Medicaid won't. So you could still potentially have some out-of-pocket costs there. Generally, Medicaid's going to pick it up. So on employer-sponsored plans, generally you're going to benefit from having an employer-sponsored plan as your primary. Very often an individual plan could be a great way to be your primary and have Medicaid or Healthy Connections as your secondary. They both can have limits, but you're going to get more benefits out of an employer-sponsored plan combined with Medicaid. Does that make sense? Okay, good. So, yeah, so it can really, Medicaid, TEFRA can, and managed care plans can really play a large role in benefits and services that you receive. The important key to obtaining benefits, obviously, is having a medical diagnosis that qualifies them as eligible for Medicaid. That was something we were not able to do with our son because we could never really get him a diagnosis beyond just learning disabilities, ADHD, developmental delays. Now, there probably could be services if we pushed hard enough to get that. If we knew then what we know now, we probably would have pushed a lot harder for those kinds of things. So, you live and you learn, right? So it's, we wish we could have or we would have, but we can't go back and change that. It is what it is. So, that's another thing, is to, fight for your children, fight for your family members, whatever the case may be, when it comes to this stuff, because when they become adults, they need, they continue to need a lot more services that the state or the community can provide them. And without a diagnosis, it's very, very difficult and really impossible to get that. So again, work with your pediatrician or your medical providers to help you with that. Whatever it takes. I had a conversation with a lady I met at the Chamber of Commerce one day, and she was telling me about her son's situation, and he was very, very intelligent. He had Down syndrome, and it was kind of heartbreaking situation, because the kid was very smart, and they knew he was very smart, but because he had Down syndrome, in order for him to get a diagnosis and to get the benefits that he and the services through the state and the federal government, they had to sign a paper that basically said that he was mentally retarded. And it was just like, just, why don't you just hit me over the head with frying pan kind of thing, or punch me in the face. It's very difficult and very challenging emotionally as well. But they got through it, and they finally said, you know what, if this is what it takes to get my child the services that he deserves, the other child, I'm just going to do what I got to do and get him the services, and he can live his life. And he's always going to be in our back pocket, and we know that, but at the same time, he doesn't have to be a child for the rest of his life. There's a lot of opportunities for him that are going to be available to him when he gets out there that he's going to want to pursue. So, and so that's what they did. So again, fight for your children. The system, it is what it is. It's not great by any means, but navigating it sometimes, it can be a challenge. It is obviously a challenge because of that, but you sometimes have to swallow your pride to help your kids, and do what's best for your children and your family members. So that was a unique situation. And I talked to her about 5 years ago, and it was really just, it's always really just stuck with me. And it's like, there's gotta be, a better way for things, and, love to see more things like this turn around. So, so again, having that diagnosis is tremendous, especially, as they become adults and get out into the adult world and start getting in the workforce. That's where it can be really even more challenging too. So along with school, I mean, you both have kids in school, is that correct?
We homeschool.
Yeah.
So we don't
Oh,
get.
that's right.
Yeah, we don't get any of the public school services.
Right.
Do you-
Okay.
do you
Yeah, I
mind if
remember our
ask why you guys
conversation,
homeschool?
Catherine.
It's something that we were doing already. And then Maya's diagnosis was when she was 7, and she missed about a year of school recovering from her surgery. And so it just worked out. And now with her being immunocompromised, we are glad that we're still homeschooling.
Yeah, with COVID. Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that for sure. How old is she now?
She's 11 now. And so we have Maya, who's 11, and Ava, who's 9.
Okay.
But Maya is the one that has the tuberous sclerosis complex and has the brain tumor and on the chemo and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So, yeah. But, you'd never know it. She is, you'd never know that there's anything wrong with her unless you're told.
Right.
So,
Michelle, what about you?
My son is 16 and a half and he goes to Lucy Beckham. So he does go to public school. But we just fought for 6 months and I had to pay for an advocate. And he is nonverbal with sensory processing disorder.
Okay.
And supposedly from Buffalo, his IQ dropped 40. There's no way that happened. So I try, he understands everything, knows everything. He's incredibly smart. It's just that he's nonverbal. So everybody treats him that wrong way.
Right.
So I told him, try your best not to do good on the tests. Do what you can do. Answer the wrong questions, everything. And he needed an aid all day long because he uses a keyboard to communicate. So he had to have an aide with him all day long to hold that keyboard. And he wasn't getting that at his other high school. And then they would keep him locked up in a room, kind of. It was open door, but it was like a size of a closet. And they would leave him in that room all day. And I didn't think that was appropriate. So we had to fight and spend a lot of money to put him at Lucy Beckham that just opened up high school last year at further down in Mount Pleasant.
Right.
And he's doing really, really good. They're wonderful teachers. And he did get an aide. And we thought we'd get an aide an hour a day, but he actually got an aide for the whole day in classroom every day.
That's great.
But only because
Awesome.
he was severely, but he's not. So
Right.
he's beyond frustrated and he'll tell you, I'm bored. I can't handle this. This is ridiculous. And he tells me these things every day. So it's frustrating for him to be in a place where he is not learning anything.
Right.
But he has an aide that can talk with.
And
Becky
what
too.
grade is he in?
He's in 10th.
10th.
Yeah. So
Excellent.
Yeah, when Maya was first, recovering from her surgery, I contacted the public school system and, asked them, what can we do? What can you offer us? How can you help us? And they're like, we can't do anything for you unless she is in public school. And so we have paid for 3 years. We paid for a tutor for her twice a week. And then she had cognitive therapy for about 2 years. Yeah. 2.5 years.
And I don't understand that. I don't know, because he's 16 and a half. We actually lived in North Carolina when he was diagnosed and they offered him nothing. So I ended up moving back to Buffalo and we got 35,000, not in our pocket, but a year for services. So when he was 2.5, he had 30 hours a week of services. And so he was at home. It was intense ABA therapy and occupational speech, everything, every single day. And he was 2, this poor little kid, but that's what we got up in New York because that's what you pay for, unfortunately. And after 11 years, when I was finally there, it did take me 1.5 years to prove that he did have the diagnosis as well. Like you're saying, like with Tefra, in New York, it took me 1.5 years to prove with all the diagnoses, with him going to a special school that was only for autistic individuals, everything. And so down here, it took me 9 months to prove that once I relocated down here.
How long have you been down here?
3 years.
Okay.
And when I moved down here, got back on respite and I was 70, he was 77,500 and something on the list for respite. And that was 3 years ago. So I'm going to assume we're never going to get it. So I'm a single parent and I don't have any help. So I don't understand why, it seems like services go away even when they're 21. So I know your guys is a little bit younger, but still she should be getting services whether you're at home or not home, or does your age, it should not matter. And I don't know how that changes. I don't know what we need to do to get that to change. But yeah, Tafra has helped out, but at the same time, right when we got accepted for that, I don't have a caseworker. She's never contacted me, nothing. And that's been 2 years. So I have no idea. I've been like doing this myself. Go on Facebook, who's here, who's with. I mean, it's been extremely frustrating. I don't think it should be once I spend all that time getting on Tafra, and then it's like, okay, we got you there, and now what? Who cares about you? We have caseworkers who are so overloaded, and I'm like, okay, I don't know where anything is here.
Right.
So
yeah, like we got a diagnosis when he was 3 years, 9 months, and he's 14. And this was before we even knew about Tefra. And we just had straight Medicaid at the time. And like we had a caseworker through DDSN. I think we saw her like once a year. We did get respite for a little bit. And at the time I was working for a builder, but that stopped, 2018. I had to think about that for a minute. But like we switched around to a couple different companies, like people they wouldn't show up on time, or they wouldn't show up at all.
Yeah.
It was awful.
I think it's crazy.
Yeah. Catherine, does your daughter get like PT, OT, speech, anything like that?
She was getting well, she was getting cognitive therapy, and she was getting physical therapy. She's had physical therapy off and on, but ever since she was doing physical therapy when COVID started, and cognitive therapy, and when COVID started, all that stopped, and then we have not started any of that back up.
They didn't offer to do like virtual therapy or anything?
The cognitive therapy, no, but the physical therapy, they did offer that, but we did not do that. I guess
I would
we
imagine that's probably
have.
pretty difficult to do virtually.
Yeah. So, but she seems to be doing fine right now. So hopefully it's not anything that's going to rear its ugly head later that we should have done. But I mean, she seems to be fine. The doctor said, at some point she could have surgery to try and correct her walking, and she's like severely knock-kneed now, and they said it's because of her hips. I don't know if that has anything to do with her diagnosis, but it just seems like we go from one little thing to another thing. She did do speech therapy for a while because after her surgery, she was on a feeding tube, and she stopped eating for a while. We had to put her on some different medication to increase her appetite. And then they were doing feeding therapy because they said where the tumor is located, that's where I guess your appetite and your desire for food and everything kind of comes from. So he said that her pickiness and not wanting to eat this and taking an hour and a half to eat. I mean, she still does that. It takes her an hour and a half to eat. Could be from the tumor. And so, but there's no removing it. So we, have been just dealing with it. So she's getting a little bit better about some of the foods that she'll eat, but she's extremely picky.
It's not a sensory thing either, right?
I don't know. I think some of it might be, and also I've noticed, if you look in the back of her throat, like if I compare her back of her throat to the back of my other daughter's throat, you can see right down into my youngest daughter's throat. But Maya, it's like she has this tiny little hole in the back of her throat that, you can't see down into the back of her throat. And I don't know if that's because anything developed abnormally because she had this golf ball sized tumor growing in her brain, which may have been pushing. I have no idea. It's just guessing. So, but.
And the doctors, the ENTs, anybody, no one's told you anything?
No, I mean, they did, when they were doing speech therapy and feeding therapy and all, they tried a few things with her to try to get her to eat this, try to get her to eat that.
Yeah, and different exercises like putting her chin down to swallow and so forth.
I don't think that they ever did anything like that. They were just helping her work through, like she would have challenge foods that she would be challenged to eat each week, so many times a week. So
I work for a gentleman. I've been doing home care for like 30 years. And before I moved, I worked for a gentleman who had the tube, and he just stopped eating, drinking technically. And I found him passed out the one morning I came in. So I had to call 911. We got him in there and they took him to a rehabilitation center where they happen to have a wonderful speech therapist and
Mhm.
taught him how to eat, even though he was told he could never eat again, ever, ever in the mouth, ever. And somehow he did within 2 weeks. They gave him so many different exercises, like, keep your chin down and eat. And he did. And now he eats all the time.
Yeah.
I
If you
have,
try and get, yeah, if I try and get her to eat stuff that she doesn't want to eat, she literally gags.
yeah.
So, I mean, she'll
Well,
sit there
it
and,
might seem like she's choking if her airways are tinier. Maybe she just thinks she's choking.
I don't know. I just think she doesn't like it. She doesn't even, I don't know if it's the taste of the food or the texture of the food. They did a swallow like scan on her where she had to swallow the barium or whatever it is that they watch it go down, and they, said that she could swallow. So I think it's a texture
Okay.
food. And at the time, that was the only thing that she had control over, was what she would actually eat. And so I think that I don't know if maybe she felt like, this is the only thing that I control is what I will actually swallow. And so I think that maybe that was part of it too.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
How do you not get service?
Wow.
Yeah.
But
So the ENTs haven't said anything about that in the back of her throat at all?
no, and you're always saying ENTs. I don't even know that she's actually ever seen an ENT. She's got
Really?
and she's got, the neurologist, the neurosurgeon, the cardiologist, the dermatologist, the nephrologist,
All the ologists.
all the ologists,
Yeah,
I mean, I can't even think of all
yeah.
the ones right now, but
Which hospital is she go to?
MUSC. Yeah. So everything.
Dr. White's there. The ENT Dr. White is there, and that's who Tyler sees.
Yeah.
And he's
I
the one
guess-
that does certain specialized surgeries and everything.
I guess I've
Okay.
never really pushed it or brought that up enough that, and they did, like I said, they did the swallow test on her and said that she could swallow. So
So yeah, it didn't go any further.
no, it didn't go any further. And like I said, then we were doing, feeding therapy and those things, and those petered out. So
It
And
doesn't sound
nothing.
like it's really affecting anything of
Just her eating.
yeah, just
On a-
the amount of time that it takes her to eat.
it is
And
affecting that, yeah.
and then her diet, the tuberous sclerosis and the medication that she takes can cause her cholesterol to be elevated. So right now, all of her liver enzymes are elevated. And so we're having to, she's on the omega-3 twice a day, and, try to get her to eat better, but, she's a heavy meat eater and heavy carb eater, and she'll eat like 2 or 3 vegetables and 2 or 3 fruits, and that's it. So,
Wow.
I've had challenge like since Tyler. He used to throw up with the smell of egg and sweet potato. So his sensory is
Mm.
everything, like from crowded places to lights to hearing to touching, everything. Can't go anywhere, can't do anything, can't do anything typical people can do.
Mm.
So, I mean, if we go somewhere, it has to be it opens. He's got to have headphones on. We got to be 5 minutes in and out. We can't wait in lines. I mean, it's extremely difficult. So COVID was nothing for us. I mean, we
Right.
were restricted. So, I mean, hi, sweetie.
Yeah, I started to feel bad, it's like, I thought, going through what we went through with our son was a challenge. but I guess, it wasn't so bad. I'll count my blessings for sure.
So do you guys have insurance through jobs, or do you guys get it from the marketplace, or do you have Tefra?
Mine's tougher. I ended up getting it, it took, first we were on Medicaid, and then I found out something wasn't paid for. And then I found out, oh, well, you have to get it through Tefra. I'm like, well, I don't know what that is. So it was only because he didn't get services for something. And that's when we first moved in. I can't remember what it was. And so I fought, and then they're like, oh, well, you have to do this, that, and the other. And I had to call several agencies. And then it took me 9 months. And then I think it's in Somerville. It's the office in Somerville, maybe. And I had to.
Yeah, it's Orangeburg Road.
Yeah. And then
Oh,
I
for
had
Medicaid, yeah.
Yeah. And then, so then I had to physically bring him with me and be like, see,
Right.
Yeah.
he is. And, and here's the proof. So, and then after that, they got him on it.
Okay.
Yeah, in your situation, there's different levels of Medicaid. Obviously, there's Tefra, there's regular Medicaid. In your situations, Tefra is probably going to be going to give you the most benefit. Aside from that, there are the managed care plans, which are managed by health insurance companies like, Blue Cross, and those plans, everybody's needs are different, right? So, in my daughter's situation, she needs help with school. So we went from regular Medicare or Medicaid this year to a managed care plan. Her situation is completely different because she needs a tutor. So we put her on a managed care plan because they provide a tutor. She doesn't have a lot of medical needs. She's on Healthy Connections because she was the foster system. So it's just making sure you're in the right fit for you and your family, and knowing what the differences are and going from there. But I think in both of your situations, I think Tefra is definitely the best fit for you going forward. And Catherine, you and I talked the other day briefly about, or we talked a lot about your situation and everything, and just kind of digging into it and what's going to be the best thing for you going forward. Because
Oh,
I
I lost
think
you there for a
that's really
second.
me. Yeah, so just you going forward, really, it looks like Tefra is probably going to be your best option as you transition
Mhm.
into out of the workforce,
Right.
employer sponsored benefit plans. So yeah, and thanks to you, and an inquiry I made for my daughter last week because they were asking for some documentation on a couple things. It's only been 4 years, right? They're still trying to get it straight. So the other cool thing I found is that they wanted me to fax it or mail it in. I'm like, who has a fax anymore, right? So I found this app on my phone. My wife took it over to UPS to fax it, and it took forever. And finally it just timed out, it never went through. And I'm like, this is, personal protected information. It's like, I don't want to run around all over the place with it. And I don't know if my phone is using my phone any better, but I found this app where I can take a picture and download her documents and fax it
Yep.
straight
That's how I do it.
straight from an app.
Yep, that's how I do it.
So I was like, wow, I could really do that, because like searching fax services near me, and that
Is he frozen?
He froze.
Yeah.
So you guys are trying to, oh,
Is he back?
are you back?
yeah, I lost
There we
connection
go.
for a second. Yeah, I had a I have a point that I have a Google system, and I have a point in my office so I can get a better signal. And it works great, but sometimes it can cut out. So it might be intermittent. It's a great signal, but so sorry about that. But with that being said, it's a cool thing. I found that app, but I made an amazing connection at at Healthy Connections this past week. Just because she was a person I needed to talk to get the document. And Debbie had asked me to speak, and I said, and I had talked to Catherine, and I said, let me, I know this isn't your thing, and I'm a health insurance agent, but, I'm always looking for additional information so I can help my clients through their situations. And this often, this type of thing often comes up, about what are the best options for, clients that are customers, that are individuals that call me looking for help. And again, it's where I became, where I like to be a great resource. Spent about an hour talking to this and asking a lot of questions. And, she helped me answer some questions and provide me with some additional insight, as I don't know Medicaid every day. Y'all know it because you deal with it on a regular basis. And that experience gains knowledge. So, I want to have that as well. And I want to be able to direct you and guide you on, what the best options are. And I don't want, as a state agency, I don't, work directly with that. So it's kind of neat how this kind of all came together like that. So I don't know. I think God put us here. So I think it's neat. So I was able to get my documents submitted. She turned out to be a TEFRA specialist too.
That's good.
I have a
Can we have her
question.
Yes,
number?
ma'am.
Can we have her number?
I have a question.
Honestly,
Go ahead.
yeah. So I've got it here somewhere. So I called the main number, and the person actually called my wife, and it's kind of odd that she called my wife because I've always handled all Lily's stuff, when it came to this. And so my wife came to me about it. I was like, what are you talking about? And it's but anyway, so she gave me the number, and she said, this is Lily's name. And so I just called the number and asked for Janelle Lee, who was handling that. And she told me where I need to send a document and what she needed from me. And I just started a conversation with her, and I don't know how it happened, but she was amazing. She's a TEFRA specialist, and needless to say, after the conversation I had with her, she deserves a raise. So she was a great resource. So, that was pretty awesome. And, she was so nice and so willing to offer that. And, without, any resistance, she didn't have to do that for me. And, so I'm grateful to her. So, yeah, so that was a neat experience.
Yep.
Michelle, did you have a question?
I did. Crazy question. When he's 18, year and a half from now, we're going to do TMS. And I know that TEFRA does not cover that. So my question is, my ex can get him on Blue Cross and Blue Shield with his plan, and they do cover it. So how does that interfere with, if he all of a sudden puts him on Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and does he have to say that's his now primary? Does that mess up anything with TEFRA? I don't want to mess that up, but it's like $25,000. So I would rather have it paid for if I can. So I'm not sure what to do because,
Most likely, yeah. So the Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, and who's that through?
That's through Michigan. He's in Buffalo, but it's his plan through Michigan.
Okay, and whose plan is it again?
It's his dad's, my ex's.
Oh, his dad's. Okay, great. Yeah. So generally speaking, he's, depending on how the plan is written, but in most cases, yeah, so the private plans are going to become the primary. Medicaid's going to be secondary.
Okay.
In that situation, in most cases, he's going to be better off, probably 95% of the time in that situation, or with an employer sponsored plan, you're gonna be better off, because there are limits to Medicaid and TEFRA. For instance, I think it's your therapy is combined ABA and feeding therapy and OT and PT and speech and any of the others. It's in South Carolina, it's limited to 105 sessions per fiscal year.
Okay.
So depending on, and I had a customer send me a couple employer sponsored plans to review, and was looking at them, and it did include, was talking about it. What caught my eye was the ABA therapy, was listed at the top or close to the top because it was in alphabetical order along with all the other therapies. Well, it pays 90% of that. So, depending on what Medicaid would pick up after that, or TEFRA would pick up after that, if any of that, but, there may be limits on that, on how many sessions, so, those are the kinds of things where you have to, kind of deep dive into the plan, and I can help you with that if you need help looking into
It
it.
may need to, because it's going to be, well, definitely a year or something, because he's on a $7,000 deductible plan. So that's why I'm
Oh,
off the plan.
okay.
Because you
All
have two
right.
children with medical issues, and this does not help. So he took him off
Okay.
the plan, and I went on TEFRA, but now here we are. He's going to be 18 now, and now I want him back on, so this gets covered. So his Blue Cross, he will not put any more insurance on them. So it will always be a $7,000 deductible. So it's not going.
Yeah. So
nothing paid for. It will be out of pocket.
right. So
TMS.
that's
Doesn't make any sense.
yeah.
But
So yep, absolutely. So in that situation, like plan I was looking at has zero deductible and it pays 90%. That's a great primary, and that's a great situation where you'd make Medicaid, or I'm sorry, your private insurance your primary and make Medicaid your secondary.
right.
On a high deductible plan like that, those benefits, even if it pays those benefits are going to apply to the deductible. So if they apply to the deductible, as long as they're approved, which it sounds like they would be, then Medicaid looks at it like it's applied to that deductible. So we can't apply it to a claim here. So it looks like the insurance has paid it, but you're really on the hook for it because you haven't met your deductible yet.
Mhm.
So, so in a situation like that, it's best to make, to keep TEFRA as a primary, but you're saying
Yeah,
he
because
would
I'm not
lose
gonna be
that.
able to force him to cover the children anymore. He doesn't have to do it. I mean, he doesn't have to get on a good plan. As long as he has them covered, that's all that matters to New York State. But that does not help us. So I told him to take the kids off. He doesn't get child support or anything. So
Right.
he doesn't have to. He's like, whatever. So, that's why I don't know. It'll be a battle, I think. So, well, I'll have to figure out, maybe talk to you and figure out what's the best thing.
Can
Yeah. Go ahead.
Can I add something? I don't know if y'all know about this, but we get paid by the HIP program through Healthy Connections. They pay for Maya's primary insurance cost. Like, they pay for us to have her covered. So I don't know if they would pay,
You're saying, you're not saying
They
like.
pay
a-
the premiums?
they pay the premiums, yes. Like, the premiums come out of Chris's paycheck, but then we provide his paychecks to the HIP program through Healthy Connections, and they reimburse us for Maya's part of the premium. So they send us a check each month for $200 and something to keep Maya's primary care provider, so that Tefra stays secondary.
Ah,
Yeah.
And I was telling Eric this the other day, I don't know how it happens, and I don't want to jinx it, and I don't want it to get messed up, but we never pay for any of Maya's medical,
okay.
none of it.
So that works out great.
Yes. Like, we,
Right. Yeah. So go ahead.
yeah, I mean, like, one of her medications is $12,000 a month, and we don't
Wow.
pay a dime.
What,
of
do
it.
you mind
And
if I
that's
ask
the
what that's
generic,
for?
right?
No, that's the chemo that is the not generic. And now they're switching us to the generic, which is going to be
$500.
$2,500.
2,500, I think we said. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The insurance company is making us switch to the generic. But for almost 5 years now, they have paid 100% for everything
Well, they should.
Do you mind if I ask how often she has chemo?
daily. It's an oral chemo medication that she'll be on for the rest of her life. She'll never be able to come off of it.
Is that to keep it
Wow.
at a certain size?
Yes, to keep the tumor from growing.
But it's
So-
inoperable.
Right, what's left of it. It was a golf ball size tumor, and now they probably debulked, I don't know, like 50 to 75% of it.
Yeah.
But they said they'll never be able to remove what is left because it is ingrained in, they said it would be catastrophic to try and remove anything that's left. That it controls her motor function, it controls her heartbeat, it controls her breathing,
Wow.
her memory, everything. So they said they would never be able to remove it. So, and she has several other tubers that are in her brain. I think they've counted 7 now that could at any moment
Grow.
And so that's tuberous sclerosis complex causes benign tumors to grow on the major organs of the body. So they can grow in your heart, your brain, your lungs, your kidneys, your
eyes.
liver, your eyes. Like, she has to have, special eye exams. So it can grow on any part of your body. So your skin, like, she went to the dentist today and it causes dental pitting. So she has holes in her teeth that the dentist told me today they're going to have to seal all of her teeth. So it's just one of the things.
Wow.
Are they gonna seal and then put stainless steel crowns on them?
No, she just sealant. We lost.
I think we lost Eric for a minute. He'll pop back in, I'm sure.
Well, the sealant
They'll,
will protect it, but the sealant is only gonna be on the top. So are the holes only happening on the top?
no, they're actually on the front of her teeth. So the dentist today said that they will seal all of her back teeth with a white sealant, and then all of her front teeth will be sealed with a clear sealant.
Oh,
Oh,
so it's
wow.
gonna be more like a resin, like a filling of the tooth. I used to be a dental assistant,
Oh, okay.
Oh,
so
wow.
that's why I'm asking that. So, and my son had to have like 8, because he was dying so bad, his nerves would be exposed and we didn't know. And this was before I was a dental assistant. And so he had 8 stainless steel caps on.
Yeah, no, these are actually, you can see holes, little tiny pinholes in her teeth, like in the front of her teeth. And
I
the
wonder,
dentist,
does that make it like where her nerves are being exposed? So it's so sensory wise, it's like, you know, if we have something done right, it's hot or cold when something touches our teeth, right? Because our nerves are being exposed. So are these little holes? I don't know. They're probably not as big if they're that tiny. Because I'm thinking maybe that's another reason why she doesn't eat.
I don't think so. She never complains of her teeth hurting her.
Okay.
But the dentist said that they have to seal them so that the tartar and the plaque and everything can't get in there and start
Yeah.
cavities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my mom was a dental assistant for a long time too, so I had sealant on my teeth when I was a kid.
Yeah, they're good. They really are helpful.
Yeah,
And I think insurance only covers them up to they're 16.
yeah.
So he hasn't even, we can't, there's no way. You're lucky if I get 5 seconds a day in the morning and at night.
But my son's he's got a bad gag reflex too, so he's thrown up a couple of times going to the dentist. That's always fun.
They just came out with an app. It's called Hum from Colgate. And you got the toothpaste and then the app is connected to it. And then after they're done brushing, it will tell the parent how long they've brushed for. It'll tell the parents how long they've brushed for. And then the next picture will show the mouth and where the child has missed or where we have missed. Like if I have to brush for him.
Wow.
And it'll tell you where he missed.
I need one of that myself.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
I know, I'm writing that one down.
I know. We need that for our 9-year-old because she's a horrible brusher. And she was born, I forget what it's called, but she doesn't have enamel on her teeth.
Oh my heavens.
Yes, our 9-year-old. Yes. So they've had to do a lot of stuff with her teeth already. Yeah.
Well, I guess at the end of this app, when you've done what you're supposed to, you can unlock a mask. So then you have your face and you have this cute little whatever scuba mask, or you have all these fun masks that you can unlock. So it's really just a fun game for the kids. But anyway,
What is it called again?
it's called Hum, Hum,
Huh?
by Colgate.
By
And
Colgate.
it's like $15 on Amazon. But everybody should have this thing. I mean, even 2 and 3-year-olds should have this because the kids that used to come in, I'm sure, was your mother, you said, Debbie?
Yeah, my
Yeah.
mom was a dental assistant for years when I was a kid.
Yeah, I mean, I did this probably, I want to say 7, 8 years ago. And the 2 and 3-year-olds that would come in with cavities because there's sugar and everything. There's
Yeah, and all the soda and yeah.
I mean, but even in our milks, there's like 10
Oh, yeah.
grams of sugar in our skim milk. I mean, it's ridiculous. But yeah, so I mean, I would tell every parent get this thing. Yeah. And I want to get it for him because I have to brush his teeth. So
Yeah.
anyway, that was a side note, but weird. Sorry. But anyway.
Yeah, yeah, everybody needs that.
So
But so just Michelle, just going back to your question, you know, that really just kind of leads up to, you know, really what I wanted to talk about is just, you know, the situation is going to depend on whether or not you choose to make Medicaid your primary. Just go with Medicaid because there's high deductible plans. Unless, you know, Medicaid's great, the primary plans are great, or the private plans are great as your primary until you start getting into those extremely high deductibles. And then all of a sudden, you know, you've got a tremendous amount of out-of-pocket expense, whereas the majority of your stuff could be covered through Medicaid. And you know, the other thing with this too, and you guys probably already know this, I mean, you've been living with it, you know, for a long time. You know, there's, with the limits on Medicaid and the you know, the prescription drugs and all those sort of things, you know, if you exhaust your benefits, you know, work with your providers. You can very often they will extend your benefits if the providers say it's medically necessary. You go beyond your 105 therapy benefits, those sorts of things. You really have to, and you guys, I think all of y'all already know this, and you just have to be an advocate, for yourself and fight for yourself, for, everything that you can get. I do the same thing when I go to the doctor and they ask me where they want to send do you want me to send your prescription to Publix? And I'm like, well, what are you ordering? And they tell me what I'm ordering, and I go look it up on my phone, and it's like, find the best price. That's where I want to send it. That's, as simplified as it gets. It's a lot more, your situations are a lot more complex, but again, fight for those formulary exceptions on your prescriptions. If Medicaid doesn't pay for something, which I don't think that was really an issue for you, Catherine, was it?
As far as them not paying for anything?
Prescriptions, yeah, your pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, as far as I know, we have the CVS Caremark is who has been the
Right.
primary, is paid for the primary cost of her specialty prescriptions that we have to get from the CVS specialty pharmacy.
Right.
Because I provide that information, because also with the HIP program, you do have to qualify for that. So I do have to send in all of her EBOs and everything. And so when COVID stopped and she stopped having all of her therapies, then I was afraid that we weren't going to qualify for HIP anymore. So I talked with the HIP specialist and she said, what about prescriptions? She said, and I said, well, don't you know what she's on? And I said, who pays for that? And she said, no. She said, you're going to have to get all of that information from CVS, because I guess they were not paying for any of that. So they didn't have those records. And so in order for us to qualify for the HIP program, I had to get, it was $100 and something thousand a year. And so that qualified her, that pushed her over the qualifying limit when we weren't doing therapy every week anymore. And so I was afraid that she wasn't going to qualify anymore, but that cost of that medication pushed us over that
Wow.
the
Right.
limit we needed
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. With pharmaceuticals, work with the pharmaceutical companies. A lot of times it'll happen. I was working with a client this week, and she called me the other day and she got a notification that her son's Humalog insulin wasn't going to be covered. Ran into some issues with that. She's been having trouble with Blue Cross or getting her device or DME or durable medical equipment covered for her son, and nothing's going towards her deductible, fairly low deductible. Nothing's going towards the deductible, and she didn't understand why. And so we did some digging into it and found out that, well, her devices are over $500, and in the summary of benefits it says that anything over $500 has to be pre-certified. Well, they thought it was being pre-certified, found out it wasn't.
Yeah.
And so with the cost of that, them being on the hook for that. And so you really got to follow up with your physician, your providers, and make sure that stuff is going through, and all that stuff. And the ironic thing is she called me today and said that they got home today and this delivery showed up from Eli Lilly, and it was a year's worth of Humalog pods for his insulin pump that just showed up on their door. And it was just like, what? And it was just like, because they had sent letters and they had requested help and done all the things that they needed to do. And then we were talking, let's say Thursday, we were talking Tuesday, we talked yesterday, and she was telling me about what she's run into. And the challenge for me as an agent in health insurance is that I don't see claims. I don't see what's going on behind the scenes. So if something's going wrong, I don't know, unless I hear from my clients, or, if I'm reaching out as just a courtesy, as I try to do throughout the year with my clients, I don't know that there's any issues sometimes. So, and I said, let me help you with this. So, I got on the phone with Blue Cross Blue Shield. We worked through, we figured a lot of things out, but the amazing thing was that we talked today, a day later, and all of a sudden she's got a year supply of, these Humalog pods for the insulin pumps. She goes, "Did you have anything to do with this?" And I said, "I'd love to take credit for that." But, and he's got so much that it's going to run out. I mean, it's got a year shelf life. It's going to run out before he can use it all. That's how much he got. So, so again, just a lot of it just comes about to being an advocate for yourself. And, depending on the options that you have available to you when it comes to health insurance, how the plan is designed is really just going to depend on whether you want to make them your primary or whether you want Zephyr to be your primary. And if you ever need, another set of eyes on it from the insurance, from the private side, I'm happy to look at it. I can dig into these things. I can figure a lot of these things out, get in touch. If there's something that I'm not sure of, I know who to call to get the information, get the answers, to make sure that you're making the right decisions for you.
Do y'all have any questions? It's a little after 8. I didn't want to keep everybody all night, but just want to see if there was anything else that you guys wanted to ask him, or me for that matter.
No,
Okay.
I'm gonna have to get him to shower in bed anyway. So it was nice meeting everybody.
It was nice to meet you guys too.
Nice meeting you guys.
You too.
If you guys ever have questions for me, or if you're looking for other resources, please feel free to reach out. Like Catherine, I know you guys aren't really looking for a home. Shell, you said you are in about a year, but if there's anything I can do as far as real estate, or, anything autism related, or special needs
Does
related.
South Carolina have special loans for parents with special needs?
So there is certain types of loans, which I'll get you in contact with a lender for that. But it's more for someone that has an adult child. So this may be something that you could do in a couple years with Tyler, but where I'll let them, I actually have 2 lenders that I can give you their contact info for. One of them actually has a child with special needs. He's a little bit, I want to say he's a little bit younger than my son. They might be the same age.
Okay.
But close, your son and my son are pretty close in age. Mine's going to be 15 in January. So close enough.
In Buffalo, before I left, I was going to buy a house, but it was most parents, 3 and 4 parents, were purchasing a house in order for their sons to live in that house.
Okay.
Because there's nowhere for our young adults to live.
Okay.
So the second mortgage for parents, and that is horrible.
Okay.
I was starting to go through a program where you had to take a couple of special classes, and then you would qualify for a much lower APR. I mean, obviously not like this 1%, but I'm talking this was years ago.
Right.
So I know South Carolina did the same thing. And I also don't know if Catherine, I don't know if that helps you, but South Carolina doesn't pay caregivers to take care of their children at home, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So, because I know they do in like New York and Connecticut and Maryland.
Well, like you can do that for respite, actually. Like I have 2 stepsons that are adults, And if they want to go through and become like a respite provider, they can get paid for, you know,
you have
like
to
watching their little brother.
But you have to qualify for that, right? Like he's the 7,500 on the list to get respite. So I have to wait till he gets approved for that respite in order to even get a respite provider.
I would say contact DDSN
Okay.
and ask them, because they could answer that better than I could, but I'm trying to remember when we had it. I remember asking our caseworker and she was like, yeah, if, you know, if one of your sons or both of your sons want to, you know, do that, they can. And I don't know that it's really all that much money. I think it's like $10 an hour or something like that. But
Yeah, it's not much, but I know that I was approved for 20 hours a week before I had relocated,
okay,
you know, and they just couldn't find anybody.
right,
I moved out in the country and no one wanted to work. So
Right. yeah.
it was frustrating. So
Yeah.
I didn't know, but I've been here 3 years and they're like, it's going to take you forever.
Yeah. Like when my son first started getting ABA, it was before Medicaid was forced to pay for it. So he had to get on a waiver for that,
Yeah.
which I think that took roughly 2 years, something like that. Maybe it was a little less than 2 years. Honestly, I can't remember now, but yeah, I mean, we waited a while, and then same thing for the respite. And I was like, you know, when I stopped working for a builder and, you know, was doing general brokerage, I didn't need the, you know, the respite care as much because I could kind of schedule everything. I
Yeah.
could schedule around when he was at school or he was at therapy or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I would definitely contact DDSN
Okay.
because they should be able to give you all of that stuff.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Of course, my pleasure. Anytime you guys have questions for me, please feel free to reach out. Anytime.
Look forward to seeing
Yeah, same
some of
here.
your other programs or some of your other discussions that you might have each month. So,
Well, you know, I actually, it's funny, I actually had intended to start doing this in 2020, and then COVID hit, and, you know, nobody really knew about Microsoft Teams or Zoom or, you know, any of that kind of stuff. Now everybody is like pretty much an expert on it. But you know, it was funny, like the lady that actually helped me start doing this, her name's Alana Hopkins, and she works for Annie Mac Mortgage, and she has a daughter and a son that both were special needs. Her son actually passed. But she was like, she looked at me and she was like, I've never met anybody like you. I've never met a realtor that wanted to do this. And I was like, not everybody that that I know that's a realtor would, you know, be able to help somebody that has, whether it's, you know, a young child or an adult child with special needs find a home. They wouldn't know the things to ask for or to look for or suggest, because it's, you know, it's not their life. They don't live that, you know, like when my husband and I built our house 10 years ago, and there was certain things that were, you know, on our list of, you know, what we needed to have in a home, just like anybody else. But then there was other things that were dangerous that most people wouldn't think of, you know, like at the time our son couldn't swim. So, you know, our neighborhood has ponds. I was like, we can't build on a pond lot. You know, we have a gas fireplace. We had to get the builder to put the switch for it up higher because he had just learned how to turn on a light switch. So it was like a light show in my house all the time. But it was a safety thing. Like, you know, I went to culinary school and I was like, I really want a gas stove, but all knobs on a gas stove are right in the front. And I was like, that's super dangerous. But we got him to put a gas line in behind the stove so that when he got older, we could always switch it out. And it would, you know, if it wasn't an issue anymore, you know, then we could, you know, it's just little things that, you know, like I actually had a client that just closed last month. And they have a little boy that just turned 3, that there were some safety things that they were concerned, like he's an eloper. And, you know, one of the first things that they did, even before their house closed, was had to fill out the paperwork with the HOA for a fence, because they couldn't let him outside by, you know, even for a second, because he would take off running. You know, pond lot, same thing for them, was super dangerous because can't swim, you know. So there's all sorts of different things that not everybody would think of, you know, to, you know, talk about or ask about or whatever. And, you know, not everybody knows that when you build a house, that if you have a child with special needs, that they have to make the house ADA compliant for whatever your needs are. Not everybody knows that either, you know.
I had a
So.
family once, they had to turn the fence the opposite way because there's some climb just on a couple of 2 by
Yep.
whatever to
Yep.
get around the fence.
Yeah, I've actually seen that a couple of times. And somebody asked me about that, and I was like, I bet they have somebody that's a climber. I have a girlfriend that her little boy is a climber, you know, and he's like right up there on the kitchen counter
Oh, yeah.
constantly. But- Okay, well, I'm gonna let you get him in the tub. I need to do the same thing for mine. But thank you guys so much for joining. Eric, thank you so much
That
for
was a pleasure.
all of your wealth of knowledge and doing this. And, you know, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and anybody needs anything anytime, feel free to reach out. And Catherine and Steve, Chris, I have your information. I'll be reaching out to you in the next few days.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
Michelle, if
you're
you want
welcome.
his info,
Yes.
let me know. I can send it off to you. And vice versa.
Okay.
You're okay with that?
I'm okay with it. I'm an open book.
Good.
Share.
Good. Well, if you guys have anybody
Awesome.
that you think would be interested in, you know, in next month's event too, which is on building a new home, when you have a family member with special needs, by all means, you know, give them my info, you know, and thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Michelle, if you Google my name, it'll come up. You'll
It'll come
find me.
up.
It's pretty easy. So,
That's what I did.
Yeah.
Because I was reading about the thing and I was like, I need to talk to him today. So
is that how you found me?
I did. I
Google?
Googled you.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And I was so
Awesome.
surprised whenever I called the number and you actually just answered the phone.
Yeah, well, it wasn't recorded. Sometimes you get my voicemail, but if I'm available, I try to pick up. So
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was very cool.
yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to help you guys, and we'll
Thank
be
you
in
very
touch.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you,
All right.
everyone.
Thanks, Debbie.
Guys,
Bye, everybody.
thank
All right,
you.
bye bye. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.